Good evening, everyone. How are you? Another good week for Newcastle United. Obviously, winning against Bournemouth in a fantastic performance midweek, winning 4-1. That was sort of unexpected, but I mean, we will take that all day long. Brilliant. Still no takeover news, obviously, and the debate about Steve Bruce has been raging. So I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later on. Good evening to all of you that are in the chat already. So Jabba Dabba Doo, Kieran, Gordon, Mark, Paul, Trev, and Peter. Good evening to you all. Good. So yeah, loads to talk about as always. We've got West Ham coming up at the weekend, which is an exciting game, but one that after West Ham's result midweek makes it a little bit more interesting, I think, as well, because they'll be going into that game with a lot more belief, possibly, than they had they lost against Chelsea, and obviously on a bad run of form. So it was a massive win for them. So we'll talk about the West Ham game later on, and obviously, yeah, we'll talk a bit about Bournemouth and all the things that have happened since, about St. Maximin, Almiron, Steve Bruce, all that stuff. And I can see Peter Robson already asking about Longstaff, so we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the takeover. A pretty quiet week in terms of the takeover this week, so we will, we'll just sort of we'll chat about all those things. So thank you very much for joining me. So I've also got a quiz question, which is not Newcastle related tonight, but it is relevant to the date. So I'll share that with you pretty soon as well. So yeah, let me know. Let's begin by talking a little bit about the Bournemouth game. What did people think about that? Who was your man of the match? What was your highlight? What were your highlights? Any negatives from it at all, or were you happy with it all? I mean, I personally thought it was kind of a really rounded performance. I think there's an argument. I don't really think it's much of an argument. I've had a few people message me saying that, well, it was only Bournemouth. Bournemouth gave up. Our season's over since we lost to Man City, so this game doesn't really count. As far as I'm concerned, that's all a load of nonsense. I think this is still a Premier League fixture. That counts. We still got 3 points from it. Yes, Bournemouth were poor, really bad, and they didn't turn up, but that's not our responsibility. And the fact of the matter is, you still have to beat what's in front of you. And we didn't just beat them, we absolutely played them off the park. It was the performance of the season, and in my opinion, full credit should go to all the players and Steve Bruce and the coaching staff who set the team up well and executed the game plan well. And you cannot argue with that. And we should be just celebrating the fact we've won 4-1 away from home in the Premier League, because it doesn't happen very often. So, we should be delighted with that. Obviously, Alan St. Maximin was outstanding. Wasn't one of the scorers, but was absolutely superb throughout the game. 3 assists out of 4 goals. We're starting to really see what kind of a player we have now that he's had a time to rest. He's come back since Project Restart. He's been fantastic, certainly against Sheffield United and against Bournemouth. Just absolutely unplayable, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, he has his close control and his strength, and obviously his pace, just make him an ideal player to play in the Premier League. He is absolutely fantastic, and let's hope that this takeover goes through, because if it doesn't, there's no doubt that Ashley, in my mind, will sell him at the earliest opportunity, because there's already teams starting to pay attention to him, and I'm sure there is money to be made from him, even though we paid 16 million for him. So we'll see about that. Let's have a look. Peter, welcome in, Pete. Before the host, yeah. Maxi is fantastic, says Stephen. Yeah, man of the match for Jabba Dabba Doo was Lascelles. Interesting, again, I've sort of seen a few people mention Lascelles. He's some fans sort of criticising him, maybe making out as if he's not as good as we all sort of want him to be. But I think Lascelles has done a great job this year. The defence has been good for us this season, and Lascelles has been an integral part of that. So I don't see where the argument really comes from. I think I said in my match review video that I did after the Bournemouth game that I didn't really mention the defenders, but what they had to do, they did well. And Lascelles, yeah, I agree, had a good game. I don't think there was anyone on the pitch that had a bad game against Bournemouth, from the keeper to the forwards. Paul William, man of the match, Longstaff. It was a real shame that Longstaff went off injured, because he was on the pitch for about 35 minutes, and in those 35 minutes he had the best game he'd played for us for a long time. He was playing in a more advanced central attacking midfielder role, and it really suited him. And to me it was a bit of a relief actually to see that he still has something about him, because again he was another player that people were questioning, weren't they? Was he a flash in the pan when he first came into the team? And I know he's had injuries and all that sort of stuff, but it was nice to see him have a good game. He got on the score sheet, and it was unfortunate that he went off injured, presumably with a hamstring. I've not actually read up anything since then. Was it a hamstring? Can anyone confirm that? But yeah, he had a brilliant performance in the 35 minutes that he was on the pitch. Mark Parker agrees. Saint-Maximin, man of the match. Agrees with me. Personally, I thought Saint-Maximin was our man of the match. The assist for Longstaff's goal was unreal. It was... You'll not see a better assist than that all season. He took on half the Bournemouth team. He danced through them. It looked like he'd ran into a dead end, and then somehow his quick feet... And I still don't quite understand how he sort of pulled it back for Longstaff, because he kind of did like a fake pass, and then like less than half a second later he'd rearranged his foot and passed it back to Longstaff. And Longstaff with a really tidy finish as well. In fact, all 4 of our goals were really, really good goals. So there wasn't a tap in amongst them. It was excellent. Really nice as well, just on a side note, to see Gale get on the score sheet again. Obviously, he had that big miss against Man City that he got a lot of criticism for, and rightly so, me included. I think that was a miss that he should have scored. There's no doubt about that. So it's nice to see him bounce back. Took his goal superbly, and an early goal like that really set us on our way. Gordon says, excellent performance, 4 very good goals, yeah, like I said, and the dribble was outstanding. And yeah, the finishing was amazing. I believe we had 6 shots on target, and we scored 4 of them. And they weren't, like I said, they weren't like 3-yard tap-ins. They were really good finishing. Almiron's goal and Lazaro's goals were both, across the keeper, high into the top corners. Just fantastic. Longstaff's goal was great, and Gale's goal was also really good. Just a really good thing. Phil Tate says, Manquillo 4-year contract, what does this tell us? Well, it depends how pessimistic you want to be, I think. Obviously, some people are reading into that it's a sign that Ashley's staying. But then I've seen the argument that it's a case of the football club have to operate normally. Would you give him a 4-year contract? I don't know. He's a good player, isn't he? But maybe they're thinking... The thing with football contracts... Everyone knows a football contract rarely lasts the length that it's signed for, and so you've got to sort of factor into it that there's they're thinking about resale value as well. So could Manquillo become a valuable asset under new owners? If he doesn't, if someone better's brought in than him. But it is an interesting question. And the takeover has gone very quiet this week. That's maybe not a bad thing. Obviously, we had the Richard Masters stuff, I think, at the beginning of the week. Although days and times are kind of all merging into one. But I think it was Monday, wasn't it, when Richard Masters spoke to the select committee. Didn't give much away, but what he did say was, in my opinion, sort of positive. And he did say that he'd hoped that, even though he couldn't speak about the deal, that he would hoped that it could come to a conclusion soon. How long soon, we don't know, but soon you would think has to be sooner than like another 3 months. So, but we really kind of need to get it done, because it is starting to affect the planning of the club. We now need to look to next season. We're going to have a really short pre-season, and like stuff has to get sorted. So, Paul William. So if the sale doesn't go through, we are 3 years behind Sunderland. I don't agree. I don't agree with that because we're not in a ridiculous financial position like the Mackems were. I know it's easy to say that. We might get another relegation. I'm not saying we couldn't go down. I don't think we'd go down to League One. I think, if there's one good thing about Ashley, it's that he hasn't given ludicrous contracts to players, and that would hamstring us 2 or 3 years down the line. I think we don't have that kind of millstone around our neck like Sunderland did, and that's what's knackered them. Yeah, and people now, Trev and Peter both saying about players now being talked about because Almiron and Saint-Maximin obviously putting good performances in, and as soon as you start playing well when you're a mid-table club, the bigger or the higher up teams, the bigger teams, if you like, start sniffing around. And I suspect with Almiron it's a case of his agent playing a game. I mean, I don't know how long did Almiron's original contract, was it for? Is it presumably at least 4 years? So he's had what, 2 years? So I don't know what's going on there really, but we'll see. Alex Charlton obviously asking the same thing. Do you think Madrid will get Miggy in the summer? I really hope not. It all depends on the takeover, and this is why we need it to happen. We need it to happen because the club has to plan for these things. We don't want to lose Almiron. We don't want to lose Saint-Maximin. They're players who, in the event of a takeover, still have a place in that squad, still have a place in that team, because they're good enough. Just Joe says, do you reckon Saint-Maximin will stay for his 6-year contract? And if not, when do you think we'll sell? Again, it's really hard to say until we know about the takeover. I mean, if the takeover doesn't go through and we're stuck with Ashley, there's no way he'll stay 6 years at this club. We'll be lucky if we get another year out of him, because Ashley will cash in. Because what, 60 million quid? I mean, what will he be worth now? Even in the market after everything that's going on, he's going to be worth a lot more than £16 million. So if we're stuck with Ashley, there's no way he'll stay 6 years. If the takeover goes through, there's no reason why he couldn't stay for 6 years if he continues to develop and play the way he's playing. People talking about the year Newcastle were formed. There we go. Talking of a question, let's go for this then. This is tonight's quiz question. So it's not Newcastle related tonight. So what I learnt today was that 2 years ago today, England played Colombia in the World Cup in Russia, and I loved the World Cup 2 years ago. I thought it was one of the best World Cups I've ever experienced. It was a really good one. And of course, England won a penalty shootout, which doesn't happen very often. So on this day, 2 years ago, England beat Colombia 4-3 in a World Cup penalty shootout. What I want to know is who were England's 5 penalty takers that night, and who was the one player who missed. So put your answers in the chat comments. I can see Peter Robson's here, which is fantastic. And Peter has agreed to kind of keep an eye on the answers that come in and make sure we get them all. I'm sure people will get them all. But I just thought it was interesting. And obviously, I don't know, the World Cup 2 years ago, I mean, look at where we are now. It's thoroughly depressing, isn't it? The state of everything now. We should be enjoying the Euros, of course, and we're not because of coronavirus and all that sort of stuff that's going on in the world. But 2 years ago we had a fantastic summer tournament, the World Cup. The World Cups that take place in Europe usually always better, or up there with the better ones. And yeah, I had great memories of that World Cup and that penalty shootout and that Colombia game. Actually, I mean, if you remember that, we absolutely deserved to win the game, and then Colombia, who were absolutely just dirty, they were one of the dirtiest teams. They were awful. Anyway, they managed to equalise late on, and then obviously it went to penalties, and thankfully we beat them. But who Who were the 5 penalty takers that night? Let's have a look at what people are saying. Is anyone off to the pub tomorrow? I am not. I won't be going to a pub for a while. I think tomorrow could be a bit crazy as well, so I wouldn't want to be going tomorrow personally, but I think there'll be a lot of people who are very excited to go to the pub, and that is not going to end well. So I won't be going to a pub. Peter thinks Saint-Maximin will be at Chelsea or Arsenal next season if it doesn't happen. We've just got to... It's really not worth thinking about. I just hope that he is with us next season. It'd just be awful to have one season out of him and then for him to go. It just wouldn't be right. But it is where we are with Ashley. We all know that, and that's why he has to go. That's why Ashley needs to go, because this is where we are as a club with him. As soon as we get a good player, they're off, because they use us as a stepping stone. Ashley, Ashley allows that, facilitates that. He lets that happen. He sells the club as a stepping stone, and it's outrageous that happens. So we've just got to hope this takeover happens. It's so quiet. Let's hope it's the quiet before the storm, in a good way, you know. Trev says, so you think we've seen a glimpse of what Lazaro is capable of? Would you sign permanently? Yeah, I would. From what I've seen of him, if he can keep that kind of performance up, he looks good. I mean, he took his goal really well, but he did other things as well against Bournemouth that were good, coming off the bench, put in a decent... he gave a good account of himself, definitely. It's one of those things, isn't it? You just know that if Ashley stays, Lazaro is Saint-Maximin's replacement, and that's not what we want. We want a squad of good players. Let's hope that. Let's just hope that it happens. I'd be gutted. A few people guessing at the question. Kieran having a go. Yeah. Most people getting that Henderson missed, which is true. Henderson was the one who missed the third penalty, and at that point it looked like we were going to lose, but obviously then our little Mackham friend who played in goal made a couple of good saves, didn't he? There's a bit of a debate going on about when Newcastle formed. I'm not going to get involved in that, because I actually... I'm not 100% sure on the facts. They joined up in 1882 and joined the Professional League in 1883. I'll leave that to the historians amongst you. I'll leave that amongst the historians. Dale said, well, I'd said 6 points, but I'd take the 4 any day. Is that for... Which games are they for? These two, like Bournemouth and West Ham? Is that what you're on about, Dale? Peter says, if Fatboy stays, we will be renamed Sports Directed United next season. Yeah. I don't want to think about it. Let's talk about Steve Bruce. I was getting frustrated yesterday at some of the reaction to Steve Bruce. I don't know what... Let me know what you think about this in the comments, because I really would like to know. I think that I loved Rafa Benitez. Okay? Rafa Benitez is a better manager than Steve Bruce. I wish Rafa Benitez hadn't left Newcastle. You can't compare Rafa Benitez and Steve Bruce in terms of their career achievements as managers. And that's fine. But I think you can also give Steve Bruce credit when we have a good run of form. Because, let's be honest, and I'm as guilty as anyone here, we have hammered him all season for poor performances, boring football, not winning enough, and now we're on a run of games where we are one of the form teams in the league. We've suddenly scored 8 goals in a week in the league, or just over a week, and we're playing better football. So let's just give him a little bit of credit for that. Yeah, because we're all Newcastle fans. We all want Newcastle to win, and you can only beat what's in front of you. I just think I'm not an apologist for Steve Bruce at all, and I think that going forwards, if Ashley's gone, Steve Bruce should go, because I think that we should be able to attract a better manager. But I don't accept this. I just don't accept that some people can't bring themselves to give him a bit of credit when he has improved the things we wanted him to improve. Let me know what you think. Yeah, it did bother me a bit especially after such a good win, that people were trying to sort of downplay that really good away win as if it sort of was only Bournemouth. It's only Bournemouth, so it doesn't count. Well, it does, because they're a Premier League team at the moment. We're not in control of how they play. We have to turn up and we have to do our job still, and we did, and some. Kobe Donnelly. Kobe just. I messaged him earlier. I sent Kobe's prize off today. Kobe won my 1,000 subscriber giveaway, which was fantastic. So his stuff's on his way to him. Anyway, Kobe says Bruce has done a good job, but personally, if Bruce can do this for Saint-Maximin and Joelinton and Miggy, imagine what Rafa would do with them. But this is kind of the problem, isn't it? As much as we all love Rafa, and we would all, or most people would take Rafa back, he's not here, right? And yeah, imagine what he could do, but there's no point imagining that, because it's not going to happen. We have Steve Bruce, and so we've just got to give him credit for what he does do with the players we have. No one knows what could happen with Rafa. You don't know. We're probably, the probability is he'd probably be doing a bit more with these players, because of course he would. But it's kind of a bit pointless wasting your energy thinking, but we're only 13th, but maybe with Rafa we could be in the top 10. We know Rafa didn't want Joelinton, Paul. You're absolutely right. Yeah, and I think he said he wouldn't pay more than a certain amount for him. And I do think that the signing of Joelinton was partly to spite Rafa. I honestly believe that. Peter Robson, Bruce has steadied the foundations that Rafa built, but he has exceeded expectations, as I personally thought we'd go down. Yeah, let's be honest, right? At the start of the season, who honestly didn't think we would go down? Or at least be involved in a relegation battle? Because I did. I was so down. And you've got to remember as well, Steve Bruce came in with 3 weeks before the season. Last off-season was so shambolic. I think people forget this. It was such a shambles. Bruce had no time with the squad, really. The players started training without a manager. Was it Neil Redfern? Took it for a while, and then even took the team to was it China? They took them to somewhere in Asia, and then Steve Bruce joined them out there, and it was awful. So he came into Steve Bruce, and again, I sound like an apologist for him, and I'm not, but I just sort of trying to point out facts, really. But he came in with no preparation time. He came into a squad that had lost a manager that they loved, and I've heard this sort of argument about him building foundations, right? Building on Rafa's foundations, and that's fine. And yes, he has, right? But it's not a given that happens. And I'll give you 2 examples of when it didn't happen. Kevin Keegan left, and we got Kenny Dalglish in. And Kenny Dalglish ruined the foundations that Kevin Keegan had built. So Bobby Robson left, and we finished 5th. And yeah, there was issues in that squad, but there was still a bloody good squad. And we got Souness in, and we were half the team we were under Robson. Okay, so it's not a given that it doesn't just follow that the next man, if they've got a good team, carries on being a good team. And I think that, and this is what I'm saying, you've just got to give Bruce a bit of credit. You don't have to like him. You don't have to think he's a world-beating manager. But you do just have to accept that he's done all right for us. And the last few weeks have been good. And just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Phil says, you know what Bruce's problem is? He's not Rafa. I think that is partly the problem. I genuinely believe that's part of the problem. And no one wanted Bruce. I didn't want Bruce. I still don't really want Bruce as the manager of my football club. But he is. And if he does something right, then let's just give him a little bit of credit for it. Because I have given him enough stick this season. I'm sure every other person has. The Newcastle Takeover is imminent. And it's going to happen next week. Again, same cycle. Trev says he agrees. Credit to Bruce. The team are obviously playing for him. And that's it. I think I've said this before. You know, the one thing that this squad has had, and Rafa built this up, was team spirit. And again, it's not a given that continues under the next manager. But Bruce has kept that going. The players clearly like him. I mean, maybe it's because they don't work them as hard. But, you know, we can't complain at where we're at. We all thought we were going to go down. Phil, what the actual F are the Premier League doing? I've given up at this point. I honestly don't know. It's so depressing. This whole takeover thing is just... I just cannot believe it's like the 4th month of it now. Kobe says Pochettino would transfer the... do you mean transform the team within 10 years, a bit like Man City as a project? But personally, Poch plays more interesting football. Yeah, and you know, Rafa and Pochettino have been the two names linked to us. But I think the longer it's gone on, Kobe, I kind of agree. I've kind of sided more maybe towards Pochettino. As much as I love Rafa, and it would be great to see him come back and finish what he started, actually moving on and going with someone new and in a new direction would be interesting. And Pochettino plays a nice style of football. Alex says he loves Brucey, great guy, met him twice, but he's simply not the man for the takeover job. Exactly. If we get taken over, he shouldn't be the manager. If Ashley stays, I think he's probably earned his shot at another season, but I would be worried going into next season if we still had Bruce as manager. Because I wouldn't have the confidence that he could repeat what he's done this season. Peter thought we'd be where Norwich are now, to be honest. Yeah. And let's be honest, we also lost Rondon and Perez, which were like 2/3 of our goals last season. And we all know Joe Linton. I know Joe Linton's got a big price tag, but you know he's not as good a player as Rondon. So we've lost that, but he has obviously gained Saint-Maximin, who's better. So it's, you know, it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? Dale thought we'd be fighting relegation. Bruce has done a fantastic job. Chris, I've not heard anything more about the takeover, Chris, unfortunately. I know as much as everybody else. Just hoping that, like Peter says actually in the comment below, hoping that no news is good news and that just one day it's just going to be like, yep, it's been announced. Fingers crossed. But we live in hope at the moment. Lawrence, we should sell Atsu, Muto, Murphy and Aarons and use that money to get Lazaro on a permanent deal and get Christian Teller from Betis. I'll be absolutely honest with you, right? People always ask me about players from other leagues and I don't follow other leagues. So my knowledge of other players until they land in the Premier League is not amazing. So I don't know if Christian Teller is good. He probably is. But I wouldn't be able to give an opinion on it because I don't watch these players. Kevin, Steve Bruce has done an excellent job. But if the takeover goes through, unfortunately he's not the man to progress forward. And I think that's a completely fair position to stand. I think that's an absolutely fine position to have. That's my view on it. And I'm sure that's probably 99% of fans' view on it. The debate about football clubs and when they formed, I must have missed the initial comment on that because I don't know what's going on. My dad's going on about Stanley FC were formed in November. So anyway, I'll let that go. Steve Bruce needs to go. He didn't know what to do against Man City last Sunday. Right. I've heard this argument as well, right? And I absolutely agree that he was too cautious against Man City. He should have been a little bit more adventurous in the way he set it up. But at the end of the day, Man City are bloody brilliant. And it doesn't matter how he lined up, we would have struggled in that game, okay? And I think that we need to get real about the fact that it's not as simple as just saying, yeah, let's just play, 4-4-2 or whatever, 4-3-3, and have a go at them. Because if you have a go at Man City, they will tear you apart and you will lose 5-6-0. And then people would moan at him for doing that. So I absolutely agree. I didn't agree with how he lined up the team against Man City. I think he should have done what he did in the second half in the first half, and that would have maybe given us a bit more of a chance. But it was always going to be a tough game. And I don't think you can sort of judge him just on... You can't just say he has to go because of that Man City game. I think that's a bit ridiculous. Kirby, why is the game put back 15 minutes on Sunday with no comments? I don't know. I didn't realise it had, if I'm honest with you, Kirby. Yeah, Liverpool got beat. I mean, Liverpool were interesting last night, weren't they? They got beat 4-0 by Man City. And I think that it was pretty obvious that Liverpool had been celebrating their title win. So, it was an interesting result. I'm sure Man City felt a bit good about it, but there was nothing riding on the game. And I think that was part of the reason why the score was like it was. But it's a bit embarrassing for Liverpool. A bit embarrassing for them. In a few minutes, we'll go through the fixtures for the weekend as well, actually. Do some score predictions, see what people think about that as well in the Premier League games this weekend. Keith says, I didn't think Takeover was happening, but might yet. Yuri Geller has predicted it to go through. He has a 100% record on Newcastle predictions. Yeah, I mean, I remember very well Yuri Geller giving... It was before we played Arsenal, wasn't it? Yeah, it was the game, fantastic game. And I know this, it was just after my eldest daughter was born. December 2001, we played Arsenal. We hadn't won for 42 games in London. Yuri Geller decided... If you don't know who Yuri Geller is, by the way, he's like this... I don't know what you'd call him. What is he, like a psychic? Or... I don't know. Anyway, he's this strange fella who... He bends spoons and does other weird stuff. Anyway, didn't he do some sort of like ritual around Highbury before we played them? And then we went on to win 3-1. And... let me tell you, Laurent Robert's goal in that game is one of my favourite all-time Newcastle goals. A counter-attack, and Robert is basically alone in the Arsenal half, and one-on-one to the keeper, and he slots it past him. It's just brilliant. Does anyone else remember that goal? Laurent Robert's goal against Arsenal when we won 3-1. Hadn't won in London for like 42 games or something. Absolutely brilliant. So yeah, Yuri Geller. Well, let's hope he still has a 100% record soon when the takeover is announced. I just think he's mad. In fairness, Klopp didn't know what to do against Man City the other night either. Yeah, I'm sure Klopp was a bit peed off with how Liverpool played. Where would you rate the Newcastle first 11 compared to the rest of the league? Well. We're probably a little bit higher in the league than our lineup should be. So basically, we're kind of performing better than the sum of our parts. I would say we've got one or two really good players, but we've got quite a few. I mean, players that we all like, but in Premier League terms, fairly average players. I think particularly central midfield is not a great strength of ours in Premier League terms. I know Hayden's doing really well this season, but I don't know. I'd probably put us maybe similar to where we are in a sense. Maybe sort of 14th, 15th, and we're kind of just a little bit above that. Maybe even lower. I don't know. It changes through the season, doesn't it? If you asked me before the season, I would have said 20th, but maybe we are a little bit better than that. We do have some good players in the team. Gordon says, Bruce has done well getting the points, but honestly that spell over Christmas to the end of January was truly depressing. No goals in 3 successive home games, and it was dreadful. Yeah, and this is it. And Bruce quite rightly got stick for that, and because it was awful, and it was dreadful, and that shouldn't be forgotten. But, you know, the last week and obviously the Southampton game before Project Restart, it's turning around a bit. We're playing a little bit better. Let's hope it continues, because that's all we want as football fans, is to be entertained. You don't want to go to 3 home games and not score. But yeah, it's good points. Good points. The rage is still raging on about when Newcastle United were formed as a club. Interesting. Chris, yes, Ian, but Steve Bruce plays 5 at the back. It does not work. It needs to be 4 at the back. Well, he only played 5 at the back against Man City, and that was a mistake. And I think most people sort of agree that was a mistake. And he, you know, in the league games he's played 4 at the back, and it is working for us. But the thing is, honestly, Man City are so good, and with the crowds not being there, I think it's really helping Man City. It's helping the better teams in the league. I think it's, if you look, Man City are playing amazingly well. Man United are just, they're flying at the moment, and I've been a big critic of Solskjaer and Man United, but I really think that's helping them, not having crowds there. I didn't see that, Peter, about Dundee United. McLaren turned them down. Goodness me, I didn't see that. I saw that they were linked with him earlier in the season, but he turned them down. God, I mean, I'm happy for Dundee United, but as if McLaren turned them down. He obviously thinks he's bigger than that, doesn't he? He's a moron, that guy. He really is. Oh, goodness. With a decent strike, I'd rate us top 10. The way we're playing at the moment, obviously, you can't argue with it. You would sort of say the team maybe is, you know, 10th, 11th in the league. But overall, as a season, you've got to take that into context, I think. Hasn't always been great. And that's partly the manager, of course. Right, I'm just going to quickly give you the answer to the question, because I think earlier on loads of people got it right. I think... was it Kieran who got it right first? Let me know in the comments. I think Peter was on top of that. So, on this day in 2018, England beat Colombia 4-3 in a World Cup penalty shootout. Who were England's 5 penalty takers and who missed? The answers were Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, Kieran Trippier and Eric Dyer. And Jordan Henderson missed. He missed the 3rd penalty. And Eric Dyer scored the winner. So well done if you got all them. It was just a great night. As an England fan, it was fantastic, wasn't it? It was really, really good. It was a lot of fun, that World Cup. And obviously disappointment in the end not to get to the final. But it was nice to have a good run as an England fan, even if the draw was kind to us. It was good. Right, so let's just look at our remaining fixtures then. So obviously this Sunday we have West Ham at home, and then we've got Man City away. It's going to be interesting to see what formation Steve Bruce plays against Man City. Will he go with 5 at the back again, or do you think because it's the league and we're safe, he'll kind of maybe he'll start with 4 at the back? I reckon he'll start with 4 at the back midweek against Man City, but I'd be very surprised if we got anything from the Etihad. I really would. Gordon said, if Rafa had been backed a year ago, he would have taken us further. The base was there. And yeah, Rondon, if Rafa stayed, Rondon would have stayed. I'm sure Perez left as well because he knew that Rafa wasn't coming back. But yeah, we might not have had Sam Maximin. We don't know that, but yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, if we could all turn back time, we all wanted Rafa to stay. You know, it's not just about, and people keep comparing like Bruce's season this season to Rafa's season last season, but it misses the point really in terms of like, because you see lots of pundits saying, "Oh, Bruce has done a better job than Rafa." Well, no, he hasn't. Okay, he might end up with more points this season, but that doesn't mean he's done a better job than Rafa did. Rafa, I mean, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but Rafa, stuck with us when we went down. He was building something. He was building something, and Ashley couldn't stand. Ashley just had an issue with Rafa being liked. I think Ashley doesn't like people who are liked more than him, and the fans took to Rafa. We loved Rafa. Anyway, going back to the fixtures. So what else have we got? Then we've got Watford next weekend away. Again, a game that I think we can look at maybe getting something from. Spurs at home again. I watched the Spurs Sheffield United game, and Spurs were not good really overall. It's not working with Mourinho there at the moment. That said, that VAR decision, did anyone see that? That was awful. VAR. What do you think about VAR? Some really bad calls happening, and maybe it's this handball rule has got to change. The handball law has to change. Because this. How can they say that? Like, it hit his arm, okay, but he was pushed over. It was a foul, and then he got penalised because it hit his arm, really high up. It's just awful. So I felt for Spurs in that respect, but overall, Spurs at home. Why can't we get something from that? Brighton away, they're actually playing okay at the moment. Brighton, they've had a good restart since Project Restart, so that'll be a tough game down at Brighton. Thankfully, it won't count for anything anyway. It'll just be a mid-table end of the season clash, and then Liverpool at home, final game of the season. That they'll probably still be chasing like over 100 points or whatever, so they'll probably still be on it. I'm sure that after the Man City loss, they'll kind of come back round and play better again. I would think. Peter's saying bar Man City and Liverpool can't see too much to worry about. Spurs are in free fall and can see us doing them over. Yeah, I think Spurs. Yeah, why can't we get a result against them? 10 days time, 11 days time, something like that. Mark says, without fans, do you think playing at home or away games makes a difference? Yeah, I definitely think that the lack of a crowd is having an impact on certain games and teams. Like I say, I think we've benefited from it. I think that Man United have benefited from it. I think Man City have benefited from it because they're so technically good. You take the pressure of crowds and influence of crowds out, and they just play like they play, and they're just fantastic. Who will be captain if Lascelles is injured for Sunday? Is Lascelles a doubt for Sunday? Is Lascelles a doubt? And Shelby doesn't play. Peter's saying possibly Dubravka. Yeah, maybe the keeper. Who else could possibly be the captain? Hayden? Maybe if Hayden's fit. Is Hayden injured? I don't know. I actually don't really know who's out and who's in. There's so many games and so many players being injured or not injured, or I lose track of it all. Just let's focus on the West Ham game anyway. So obviously, West Ham at the moment 16th in the league. Brilliant win for them against Chelsea midweek. That was a good game to watch, I have to say. I saw most of that game. Again, another terrible VAR decision in that game. So they'll come into this game knowing that if they can turn us over, they will pretty much be safe. So it's big moment for them. Really, they'll see this as a big moment. I think West Ham probably will be all right regardless, but they're still only 3 points above Villa. But it wouldn't surprise me if that bottom three are the bottom three that go down. What do you think? What do you think? Do you think that the bottom three is going to change between now and the last day of the season, or do you think that it's locked in? Can you see Villa and Bournemouth and Norwich? Well, Norwich are gone, aren't they? But can you see Villa or Bournemouth getting out of it? on the performance that we've seen from Bournemouth since they've come back, and the fixtures they've got left, that's going to be very tough for them. Very, very tough. Villa as well. We'll see. We'll see about that. But anyway, so we've got West Ham. And let's have a look at all the Premier League fixtures while we're at it. So these are the fixtures this weekend. So we've obviously got West Ham on Sunday, 2:15 kickoff. So yeah, score predictions for West Ham, please. Let me know. What do you reckon? What do you think we will do against them? I've gone for a 2-1 Newcastle win, just because I'm feeling confident and good about stuff at the moment in the league. I think we've done all right. It'll probably be one of those games where we don't turn up and we get turned over, but I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna be confident and go for a 2-1 win to us. What do you think about that? And let's just go through the game. So yeah, let's do some score predictions then for these games. Norwich v Brighton, early kickoff on Saturday. I think Brighton will win that comfortably. I think Norwich are down and out, and I think that Brighton will win that 2-0. Leicester v Palace is interesting in my opinion, because Leicester are not on a good run of form. They are not playing well at all. And I can see Palace turning them over, because Palace, they've kind of had a mix really, but it wouldn't surprise me, unless Leicester can snap back into form, it wouldn't surprise me if it's 2-1 either way, but I'm going to go for 2-1 Palace. Man United, I think, will comfortably beat Bournemouth at Old Trafford. I've gone for 3-0 to Man United in that one. Wolves v Arsenal is possibly the pick of the Saturday games, I would say. I think that could be really interesting. Arsenal kind of finding a little bit of form after a dodgy start to Project Restart. But I think Wolves might just turn them over 2-1. I think Wolves have kind of looked all right. Well, better than all right, actually. I think they've been playing fairly well in most games. Chelsea-Watford, probably quite a dull game, but I reckon 2-0 to Chelsea. And then Sunday games, we've got Burnley v Sheffield. Sheffield obviously had a terrible run, and then they kind of halted that when they beat Spurs 3-1 yesterday. I can see Burnley v Sheffield United being a draw. It's got a draw written all over it in my opinion. 1-1. As I say, I think we'll win 2-1. Liverpool v Villa. Liverpool will not accept the way they played against Man City, and I think they'll bounce back and comfortably beat Villa. I think they'll win 3-0. And I also think Man City will continue to roll past teams quite easily as well, and I think they'll beat Southampton 3-0. And finally, on Monday, I think Spurs-Everton will be 1-1. So there's my predictions. There's my predictions for the weekend. So let's go through what you think our game will be. Gordon says it'll be a 1-1 draw. Could well be a draw. Wouldn't surprise me. My first ever match I went to was a 1-1 draw against West Ham. Kirby, dream high, 5-0. I love it. I love it when people are bold with the predictions. Sam Maximan 2, Joe Linton 1, Miggy and Lazaro. Let's go for it. I'd love that to happen. Kieran, also gone 2-1. Oh, Kieran, yeah, we do always predict the same score. How weird. That's amazing. Yeah, that is utterly bizarre. If you're not familiar with Kieran, we always predict the same score for like the last three or four games. How weird. Alex thinks a 3-2 win, so lots of goals, but will come out on the right side. Mark, similar, 3-1. And there we go. So, alright, so Gordon's predicting the Leicester game. So I said Leicester would lose to Palace. He thinks they'll turn it around and find some form and win 1-0. And Wolves will beat Arsenal 2-1, which is what I've gone for. Filter, will Longstaff change his mind instead? That is a really, really good question. I'm getting very worried about the Longstaff situation. I'm not happy about it. I think something's going on that we don't know about. It's not normal for a young lad from Newcastle to be stalling over a contract. And he's not saying anything, and because he can't. But then we've had people like Bruce himself coming out saying that the club have made him a good offer. But then, do you trust that the club have made him a good offer? Or is his head being turned by a really big offer in Italy? Either way, I just think it's a shame. I don't think it's not about Matty Longstaff being at Newcastle and suddenly being a regular first teamer, but it's about giving him a couple of years to prove whether he's good enough or not. And it would just be a travesty if we got rid of him or couldn't keep hold of him. How can you not keep hold of a player you've got who's a Newcastle supporter? And then, imagine if we got rid of him and then, in 5 years' time he turns out to be a fantastic talent. Another Newcastle youngster who we got rid of too soon. The club's history is littered with players like that. And it's, like I said, it's not about expecting Longstaff to be in that team really soon, but it's about just giving him that chance and giving the club time to develop him and see what he's capable of. Peter reckons 4-2 to the lads. Joe Linton and Carroll to score. Well, a man can dream. Yeah, okay, I love these big predictions. 4-2, why not? I mean, suddenly Newcastle playing lots of entertaining football and scoring loads of goals. Mark, yeah, Carroll does need a goal. Mark's saying Carroll's played well but desperately needs a goal. It'd be great for Carroll to score. He has done well in the games he's come on. He's looked decent. So there we go. Keith is not happy with the Longstaff situation. Classic Ashley. Unbelievable when Ashley's supposed to be selling the club. And this is the thing, isn't it? It's coming at a really weird time with the takeover or not. It's like, who is making decisions at the club at the moment? Is it still? Are we still on Ashley's full schedule, or is there influence from the proposed buyers? That's a question we don't know the answer to. But will the Saudis, if they take over, want to keep him? You'd think Longstaff would. I suspect the players know as much as we do. Actually, I don't think they know any more than we do. It's kind of bigger than that. So I don't know whether Longstaff knows something we don't, because I actually don't think he does. It's just not good. It's not good that you've got a youngster who is a Geordie let's put ourselves in that situation. If you could play for Newcastle for your entire career, you would do it, wouldn't you? So something's going on there that isn't right. Something's happening that isn't right. And I don't care how much the Italian team are offering him. It's not right that he's stalled on this contract. Belly81, have you seen the rumour that Piff want to buy Marseille and pull out of the Newcastle takeover? Look, I've said this for a few weeks now. I'm believing nothing positive and nothing negative that I read in the newspapers, because I don't think they know. I think the fact that this has gone on for so long proves that no one really knows what's happening. So I think that's another story to get clicks and views, would be my guess. So I'm not worried about it, but I'm not really paying much attention to it either, if I'm honest. Yeah, and that's the thing. Phil's sort of saying it, and Gordon's saying it. They're not going to write off their money. They're going to want a Premier League club. Yeah, I know that the Qataris bought Paris Saint-Germain, and I guess you could say, well, then they'll be head to head with them. But let's be honest, the profile of the Premier League, much bigger, and why wouldn't they want to buy a Premier League club? It doesn't make sense, in a sense, to go for a French club. That would be my view on it. Right, gosh, it's 5-10. That's gone quickly. So we'll wrap it up soon. Yeah, that is true, Peter, saying it's 70 million small change to them. But again, it's a story that where's it come from? they're going to be patient. They can afford to wait as well, can't they? If there's anything in this story, the Saudis can afford to wait this out. They'll be used to tough deals. They'll be used to the legal stuff in these tricky. These deals are not straightforward. It's not like going to the shop and buying something. It's much. There's so much legal work involved. They'll be used to it. Peter, talking of homegrown talent, apart from the obvious in Shearer, who do you rate the highest? I mean, I never saw Gaza play, but obviously I know I've seen footage of him. He was something special. And Beardsley, I guess, would be the other one. Gaza and Beardsley would be the two local lads who are just outstanding footballers. Absolutely outstanding. I think Gaza probably had the potential to be even better than he was, and he kind of, in a sense, wasted his career, but not wasted his career. His career wasn't as fantastic as it should have been. And that's just the story of Gaza's life, isn't it? He's a troubled guy, but what a player he was. But I was lucky enough to see Beardsley towards the end of his career in his second spell at Newcastle, and he was brilliant then. And I imagine 10 years before that he was even better. So what a player he was. What are your thoughts on a signing Mark Gillespie? Yeah, I mean, again, chuffed for him. You know, he chuffed. I don't really know that much about him, if I'm honest. But again, a local lad signing for the club. Was it a 3-year deal? That's something good. That's what the club should be doing. And again, let's see if he can develop into something and become part of that first team. We'll see. Gordon saying Gaza as well. Yeah, like I say, I wasn't lucky enough to see Gaza play, but by all accounts, I think most people would put Gaza as probably the most talented out of any Geordie who's played. Yeah, Gaza and Beardsley. It's got to be them two, hasn't it? So there we go. But, you know, we'll see. So West Ham on Sunday on Sky Sports it is. Now, the game against West Ham is not on Pick. So if you are a season ticket holder and don't have Sky Sports, you can use one of your Now TV codes to access the game. So just remember that. And if you're not a season ticket holder and you need a code, try and find a season ticket holder who's got Sky Sports and see if they've got a code for you, because otherwise you won't be able to watch the game. So there. Okay. It is 10 o'clock. That hour has flown by. I feel like, what have we talked about? I mean, I didn't even mention Bruce has been nominated for Manager of the Month. Sam Maximan's been nominated for Player of the Month. And you've got to say, they've got a good chance, haven't they, of winning, really. Sam Maximan, definitely. I think it'll be Bruce or Solskjaer, I think. I think it might... we're into July now, actually, so this weekend's not going to affect anything. But you've got to say Bruce has got a really good chance because of our record in June was excellent. So we will see. But then so is Man United, so it could be Solskjaer. And we we discussed Almiron and Sam Maximan possibly going to other places. Let's just hope that this time next week, how many times have I said this? How many times have we heard this? That we've had some takeover news. Let's, please let it happen. So anyway, that is it for tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your predictions. Thank you for joining in with the quiz. It's been great, actually. Really good hour. And let's hope that Newcastle United can win on Sunday against West Ham at St James's Park. I will see you really soon for another live show. See you later.